Hello, it's Book Quote Wednesday and the word is open. And today I'm reading from my young adult space opera novel, The Xenocide Mission, though adults can enjoy it too. Joel, who is human, and Boon Round, who is an alien, have been captured by the XCs, who are also aliens but another species. Joel and Boon Round want to escape. The XCs want to let them go. But unfortunately, they have no way of communicating any of this. Joel couldn't believe it. It had occurred to him that now might be a good time to try and make a break for the lifeboat bay, and he was so determined to get as close as they possibly could before making a move that it took a moment to sink in they were heading there anyway. And then they were in at the inner end of the rock-hewn chamber, and the smooth matte hull of the lifeboat was stretching away into the distance. A crowd of XCs still stood around. Joel groaned and looked wistfully at the lifeboat's airlock. It was only a matter of yards away, but still somewhere he could never get with all those XCs about. As far as he could tell, the lifeboat was fully charged and untampered with, though an XC was clambering about the hull with what looked like some kind of recording equipment, maybe taking pictures. From the markings on the suit, Joel thought he recognized the large female that had supervised his brief moment of freedom, but he had other things on his mind, and he turned his gaze back to the lifeboat. Just a few elementary commands were needed to make it whisk them away from here forever. A smaller XC, another one which Joel thought he recognized, came up to him, and Joel almost yelped when he saw his aid in its hand. Then the suited figure handed it out to him. Joel's mind seemed to detach from his body, and it was as if a stranger watched himself reach out and take it. No fuss, no XCs going for their guns. This was all official, kosher, above board. The XC ostentatiously let go of it once Joel had a firm grip. Yes, it really was his to keep. Then the XC jetted over to the lifeboat to help the one with the camera. "Thank you," Joel said. He keyed in the command for a general self-diagnostic. The display lit up. A-OK. Did XCs know these things could communicate? Well, he would have to find out. He changed functions and again keyed. Open channel to Boon Round. Channel open, QBR, said the display. So Joel keyed, "Do you read me?" A pause, then, "Yes." Boon Round's suit radio was also out, but the Rusty was wearing its translator unit, which, like an aid, doubled as a communicator. More letters appeared on the display as Boon Round asked a question. "What are we doing here?" "Don't know," Joel replied. "Do they intend to let us on board?" "Search me." "For what?" Joel glared at the latest message, then quickly looked up. How were the XCs reacting to all this longhand chit-chat? Still happy? Still happy. The XCs were looking at him closely, but they had made no effort to interfere. They must have realized what was happening. Didn't they mind that their two captives were standing here next to a fully functioning lifeboat? It sunk in suddenly and took Joel's breath away. Were the XCs actually letting them go? Boon Round was on again. "Can you interface your aid with the lifeboat systems?" "I don't think we'll need to," Joel said. More slowly, he typed, "I don't think..." More movement out of the corner of his eye. Two XCs were entering the bay with, Joel swallowed, a body bag between them, a dead human. Behind them, two more with a dead Rusty. Behind them, more bodies. "They really are sending us back," he exclaimed. "All of us!" Surely even Boon Round couldn't complain about this. The XCs towing the dead Rusty entered the bay, and Boon Round went berserk. Its suit thrusters blazed, and it dived into the small cortege on full power, sending the XCs flying. "No!" Joel howled. The dream scenario, the magical answer to prayer, was evaporating before his eyes. Boon Round ricocheted off the wall and flung himself at another XC. One of the Rusty's flailing limbs caught hold of the safety rail on the catwalk, and he swung round to crash into two more of the XCs. Two more out of the crowd that was converging on the disturbance. And Joel, to his horror, saw weapons being raised. He set his aid to audio pickup and pressed it against the visor of his helmet, hoping it could detect the vibration of his voice. "Lifeboat, recognize Gilmore, J, Lieutenant." A couple of XCs with guns were trying to get a clear shot at Boon Round, but several more of them were grappling with the Rusty, trying to get him under control. Words on the display. "Gilmore, J, Lieutenant, recognized." His throat was already aching with the need to shout, "All systems override, open inner airlock hatch." Complying. A cloud of vapour erupted from the lifeboat entrance. A couple of XEs were picked up by the blast and sent spinning, along with items of loose equipment and the unsecured contents of the lifeboat cabin. Joel set his own thrusters to full and dived into the maelstrom of condensing gas. He cut thrust as he felt the arc grav field take hold of him and his feet touch down on something solid. He reached out blindly for the handholds he knew were there and hauled himself into the main cabin. "Get into the lifeboat," he keyed to BR. No answer. Joel repeated the command as he ran past the rows of seats forward to the flight deck. "I am coming." Joel dropped into the pilot's seat and entered the commands that put all lifeboat systems on standby, ready for immediate launch. He felt the vibration through his feet, a distant hum as the flight systems powered up and the bars on the power displays moved up, out of the red and into the green. The default destination, the step-through generator, appeared on the display, and he punched another key to accept it and lock it into the nav computer. He twisted round in his seat to look back through the hatch and down the cabin to the airlock at the end. His hand was poised over the flashing red launch button on the pilot's desk in front of him. The Hurricane was thinning out, and the cloud of vapour was almost transparent now. The familiar shape of a Rusty appeared in the inner hatch, braced against the onrushing air. Joel's hand came down. A slight vibration, the dizzy blur of the lifeboat bay rushing past the viewports, and the lifeboat was out into space. "You four-legged moron, what were you doing?" Joel shouted. He strode back down the cabin, and the shout was futile because the lifeboat was still airless, but it relieved his feelings. "They were letting us go! They were—" The words dried up in his mouth. Behind Boon Round he could see a spacesuited hand grasping the edge of the inner hatch. He moved slowly, cautiously forward and angled round so that he could see into the airlock. An XC was clinging on for dear life with that one hand, and it was the upper arm, the one that didn't have fingers as such, but did have claws. Only the XC hadn't been able to extend its claws because that would of course puncture the suit. Its hold was precarious. The other upper arm was stretched out into space, and another XC dangled at the end, holding on with both lower hands. The air leaving the lifeboat was down to a light breeze, but Joel could still see that if the on-board XC let go, both would probably be pushed out into space by the remaining pressure. How had they got there? Joel could picture the scenario. Say both were close to the hull when the drive field came on. The gravitational eddies would have caused chaos in the bay, but right close to the hull it would have been an area of almost calm. Maybe the gravitational forces had plucked at them, but not much, and the smaller one had been able to get a grip on the lifeboat itself. All sorts of options ran through Joel's mind. Shut the outer hatch, that would deal with the second XC. Shut both hatches, repressurize the airlock and blow it again, that would deal with the first. But the markings on the suit of the dangling XC looked familiar, and the XCs had been trying to set them free. So he slowly walked forward, took hold of the inboard XC's arm and helped haul the pair of them into the cabin. Then he shut both hatches and set the cabin to repressurize. The first thing he saw as he turned around was Boon Round about to attack. He recognized the flexing of the hind limbs, the poise to pounce, and he quickly positioned himself between the Rusty and the XCs. "No," he said. And there he stood for another minute, angling himself between Boon Round and the XCs every time the Rusty tried to get past him, until the display inside his helmet told him that the cabin was up to pressure again. He reached up and touched his helmet release. "They're XCs!" "I know." Joel half turned so that he could look at Boon Round and the XCs at the same time. They were looking at him and at each other, and he suspected they were communicating furiously. But as XCs didn't talk through moving mouths, it looked as if they were just standing there. "They killed our siblings, human and first breed." "They were going to let us go before you went mad," Joel said. He put his helmet on the seat. "I saw the bodies of my slain pride mates. What was I to do?" Joel bit his lip and didn't answer because there was no answer. If he was ever in the position of watching his entire family massacred, then he might be in a position to judge Boon Round's actions. He also had to admit he didn't actually know what the XC's intentions had been, and even if they had been friendly, he doubted the move would have lasted following Boon Round's outburst and the lifeboat's abrupt departure with 2 accidental passengers. Going back to drop them off wasn't an option. But if he was to keep them, where to put them? The lifeboat's main cabin was just like the cabin of a normal passenger shuttle. Rows of seats facing forwards, with an aisle in between, and the flight deck at the end. Aft was the power compartment, the galley, the washroom. Nowhere really secure to put the XCs. Even if they could be locked up somewhere, he didn't want them out of his sight. So he crossed quickly to a wall locker, took an object from it, and aimed it at the aliens. We'll be at the step-through generator in 10 minutes, he said. When we get there, we'll chuck them into space and let the people pick them up. Meanwhile, we'll keep them covered with this at all times. That is an optical fibre calibrator, Boon Round objected. I know, they don't, Joel said. He hefted the long, thin and suitably gun-like tool with what he hoped was armed confidence. Maybe the Xe's were taken in, maybe not, but either way they didn't move. Boon Round, make yourself useful, get up to the flight deck, confirm we're broadcasting the right signal to let the generator know we're friendly, and set the lifeboat to come to a dead stop a half-mile off. He was slightly surprised when Boon Round meekly obeyed. Joel, you're turning into a leader, he thought, and grinned. Who cared? They were alive and going home, and that was what mattered. Except as this is only page 80, of course. There's a lot more that can go wrong. Remember, you can buy my books at www.benjeeps.com. See you next time.